Freud decoded women, but men chose to ignore it. More than a century ago, Sigmund Freud offered the world a radical idea. He said that women were not a mystery, not a puzzle to be solved, but a structure to be understood through the unconscious. He laid out a map, one that pointed straight into the hidden architecture of the female mind. And yet, most men looked the other way. Why not because the map was wrong, but because it didn't match what they wanted to believe. Freud didn't speak in the language of logic or reason. He spoke in symbols, in suppressed memories, in childhood patterns that echo through adult relationships. And for many men, that was too uncomfortable, too chaotic, too real. In a world obsessed with quick fixes and surface understanding, Freud's deep truths became inconvenient. We replaced psychoanalysis with pop psychology, emotional presence with performance, connection with control. But the unconscious never stopped speaking. It still whispers through a woman's silence, her shifting mood, her sudden withdrawal. What if Freud was right all along? What if the problem isn't that women are too complex, but that men are using the wrong tools to understand them? The map is still there, The question is, are you finally ready to look at it? Now let's uncover the first key to understanding that map. Women operate through the logic of the unconscious. Freud believed the human mind is like an iceberg. What we see on the surface is only a fraction of what lies beneath. The conscious mind, the part we think we control, is barely the tip. Beneath it, hidden in the depths, lives the unconscious. And for women, Freud argued, this unconscious plays an even more powerful role in shaping thought, emotion, and behavior. He divided the psyche into three parts. The id, raw and impulsive, driven by desire and instinct. The ego, trying to mediate between inner wants and outer reality. And the superego, shaped by morals, rules, and shame. While all humans carry this triad within, Freud believed that the way women experience this internal system is different. Their connection to the symbolic world is rooted not in possession but in absence, not in assertion but in subtle resonance. This is where many men become confused, because women do not always react based on what is being said. They react to tone, to timing, to invisible signals that bypass logic and strike directly at the unconscious. A woman may say she is fine when something is clearly wrong. She may cry without knowing exactly why. She may grow distant without a clear event to point to. These are not signs of irrationality. They are signs of a different system running the show. Freud saw female behavior not as random but as deeply coded, filled with symbols, shaped by childhood imprints, constantly negotiating the tension between longing and restraint. What appears inconsistent on the surface is often incredibly consistent once you understand the inner structure. So when a woman seems unpredictable, consider this. You are not watching disorder. You are watching a different kind of order, one ruled by memory, emotion, vulnerability, and unmet need. It is not linear, it is not logical, but it is real. And if you fail to recognize that, the next step is almost inevitable. You will misread what she truly needs, and the cost of that misunderstanding runs deeper than most men realize. When male logic stops working. Freud once compared the female psyche to an ancient language. Familiar, yet unfamiliar. Beautiful, yet coded in symbols most men never learn to read. He didn't mean it was impossible to understand. He meant it required a different lens, a deeper patience, a willingness to enter a world that doesn't operate by straight lines or clear answers. But here's the problem. Most men try to approach this world using the logic they know, a system based on structure, clarity, and quick resolution. They want answers, not ambiguity. They seek control, not exploration. So they bring their map to a land that follows different rules, and they wonder why they get lost. Every time a man says, "Just tell me what you want," and gets silence. Every time he asks, "Why are you upset?" and gets, "I'm fine," he is not being ignored. He is being invited into a different conversation. One that does not begin with logic, but with presence. To understand women, logic must take a back seat. Because what drives them is not a checklist, or it is rhythm. It is emotional temperature, and it is memory stirring beneath the surface. The harder a man pushes for explanation, the more he disrupts the very thing he is trying to reach. So where do men go wrong? And why does it keep happening? Let's break it down, one blind spot at a time. Why you try to understand but always get it wrong. At the core of male psychology lies a deep urge to fix, to solve, to make things make sense. From a young age, men are taught to value structure, to seek clarity, and to treat problems as puzzles with solutions. So when they step into a moment of emotional tension with a woman, they instinctively scan for logic. What happened? What caused it? How do I fix it? But women are not operating from that same internal compass. Their perception doesn't search for structure. It tunes into atmosphere. While men analyze words, women feel tone. While men look for facts, women absorb context. They are not waiting for a solution. They are waiting for resonance. This creates a dangerous mismatch. A woman expresses hurt, not necessarily asking for a remedy, but for connection. The man hears her pain and rushes to explain it, downplay it, or dismiss it without even realizing. He thinks he's helping. She feels unseen. He gets frustrated that nothing he says works. She withdraws because every word seems to make it worse. Why? Because he's speaking one language and she's speaking another. Male logic assumes that emotion must be tied to a specific event. Female emotion often rises from layers that have no single source. It is cumulative, subtle, triggered not just by what happened today, but by echoes of what was never healed from before. When a man says, "That doesn't make any sense," he means it doesn't make sense to his framework. But to her, it makes perfect sense. It matches a pattern she has felt, a wave she can't fully explain but knows is real. And when he refuses to enter that emotional space with her, she stops letting him in. This is the moment most relationships start to fracture. Not from betrayal, not from big fights, but from 1,000 tiny moments where a man tries to understand the way he understands everything else and fails. Not because he's not intelligent, but because he's using the wrong instrument. Understanding women isn't about decoding words. It's about tuning into the energy behind them. And until that shift happens, the same patterns will keep repeating. The harder you try, the more distant she'll feel. Not because she's complicated, but because you're still speaking your language in her world. A woman's emotions don't have an on and off switch. One of the biggest misunderstandings men have about women is the expectation of emotional consistency. Men often approach feelings like a light switch. You're either fine or you're not. If you're upset, there must be a reason. And once that reason is addressed, things should go back to normal. Simple, clean, linear. But women do not operate on that system. Their emotional world is not a switch. It's a current, a flowing river that moves with the weather of the day, the memories of the past, and the subtle signals of the present. What may seem like a sudden shift to a man is often just the natural turn of emotional tide. This is not about being unstable. It's about being attuned. Women feel into moments. They sense when energy in a room changes. They pick up on the things unsaid. Their nervous systems are wired for emotional nuance, not just clarity. So when a man sees her mood change and demands to know why, he's asking the wrong question. She may not know why in words, but she knows in her body that something feels off. The real problem begins when men interpret these changes as threats. She was fine earlier. Now she's cold. What did I do wrong? Why is she being so dramatic? He gets defensive. She gets quieter. He pushes. She pulls away. And neither of them understands why the conversation just got colder than silence. The truth is this: a woman's emotional shifts are not signs of a broken system. They are signals that her system is alive and responsive, and when men stop expecting predictability and start honoring presence, something incredible happens. Her nervous system relaxes. She doesn't feel the pressure to explain. She feels the safety to just be. This is where depth in a relationship is born. Not in perfect emotional control, but in emotional permission. The permission to ebb and flow. To not have to be the same every hour, every day. And for the man, it is the shift from reaction to reception. Expecting a woman to be emotionally steady in the way a man might be is not love. It is projection. And it creates a subtle form of rejection every time she naturally changes. When you release that expectation, you stop being shocked by her shifts. You start respecting them. And when you do, she feels more understood than any words could ever explain. Judgment is the worst tool for connecting with a woman. There is something women feel faster than any word you say. It's not what you say, but how you look at them when you say it. It's not your question, but the tone behind it. It's not the silence, but the tension sitting underneath it. Women are exquisitely sensitive to judgment, and they don't need it to be spoken aloud to feel it fully. A raised eyebrow, a slight shift in your posture, a sigh that lasts a second too long. These are not small details. To a woman's nervous system, they speak volumes. Judgment doesn't need a sentence. It travels through the atmosphere between you. And when she senses it, something inside her shuts down. She may not argue. She may not defend herself, and she may even smile. But inside, a wall is going up. Freud warned that the unconscious is the most fragile part of the human psyche. It holds not just memories, but wounds, longings, and deeply hidden fears. When a woman begins to open that part of herself and senses even a hint of criticism, the door closes. Sometimes for good. This is why emotional safety is more important than intellectual understanding. A woman may not need you to agree with her, but she needs to know you're not judging her experience. Because when she feels safe, she opens. When she feels judged, she hides. Men often don't realize they're doing it. They think they're offering advice, giving perspective, trying to help. But beneath that help is often a subtle message. You shouldn't feel this way. You're overreacting. You're too much. And that message doesn't just hurt her. It teaches her to mistrust you with the truth of who she is. Real connection begins where judgment ends. It begins when a man learns to sit with what he doesn't fully understand and choose presence over evaluation. Because the unconscious cannot thrive under a spotlight. It needs warmth, not scrutiny. And when a woman feels that warmth, her guard comes down. Not because you solved her, but because you didn't try to fix her. You simply stayed. And that is where the deepest bonds are built. How to understand women without guessing. When logic fails, the answer is not to try harder, it's to try differently. Freud never expected men to become psychoanalysts. He wasn't asking for deep theory or technical skill. He was asking for something far more powerful and far more difficult. Attention without judgment. Most men think understanding women means analyzing them, dissecting every word, decoding every look, searching for patterns and motives. But this approach keeps men stuck in their heads while women are speaking from their hearts. The truth is, you don't need to solve a woman to connect with her. You need to notice, to feel what's happening beneath her words, to stop trying to predict or control and instead learn how to attune. Because when a woman senses that you are fully present without evaluating her, something in her softens. She lets you in. There are 3 practical shifts any man can make. None of them require more intelligence, no, they require more presence. These shifts can open a door that logic will always leave closed. Now let's explore each one, quietly, carefully, as if we're listening not just with the mind, but with something deeper. Stop asking why, start noticing what is happening. One of the biggest mistakes men make is asking why a woman feels the way she does. Why are you upset? Why did your mood change? Why won't you talk to me? These questions may seem caring on the surface, but underneath, they create pressure. They force her to explain something that she may not even have words for yet. Freud understood that the unconscious does not speak in sentences. It speaks in signals. And those signals often appear long before a woman herself can name what she's feeling. That's why asking for a reason too early shuts down the very thing you're trying to understand. Instead of searching for logic, slow down and observe. Is her voice softer than usual? Has her breath grown shallow? Are her shoulders tense? Is there a pause before she answers or a stillness in her eyes? These are not small details. They are the outer edges of the unconscious rising to the surface. A woman may not say she feels disappointed, but you'll see it in the way her lips press together. She may not tell you she feels unsafe, but her posture will subtly close. Her energy will shift. Her eyes will look somewhere else. This is the true language. And most men miss it because they're too busy listening for words. Freud once said the conscious mind is rarely in charge. The body tells the truth first, and the man who notices those microsignals gains a kind of access that no question ever could. So stop interrogating and start attuning. Don't demand answers. Offer space. Let your presence be the invitation for her unconscious to speak. Because when a woman feels seen without needing to explain, she relaxes into trust. And in that space, something far deeper than answers begins to emerge. Listen to what's not being said. Women rarely say the thing that scares them most. Not because they are hiding the truth, but because speaking it feels like exposure. It feels like standing without armor. And if the man in front of them carries even a trace of judgment or correction, they will stay silent, even while they're speaking. This is why emotional safety is everything. And emotional safety is not created by fixing problems or giving advice. It's created by presence. A kind of presence that says, I'm not here to change you, and I'm here to witness you. Most men rush to respond. They offer solutions, reassurance, or worse, logic. But beneath the surface, the woman is asking a different question. She's asking, can I trust you with what I really feel? And that question is never answered by words. It's answered by how you hold her silence. How you hold the moment when she says nothing but feels everything. The unconscious will not speak in the presence of pressure. Freud knew this. It needs warmth. It needs space. It needs time. And most of all, it needs to feel that whatever rises will not be dismissed. So instead of asking her to open up, become the kind of man who makes opening feel safe, not by talking more, but by doing less, by softening your face, slowing your breath, being fully where you are without needing her to be different. Because when a woman senses that she is truly safe, her unconscious starts to rise, not in dramatic outbursts, but in subtle truths. She might share a memory she's never told anyone. She might cry without needing a reason. She might finally say what's really wrong. And in that moment, she doesn't need you to understand everything. She just needs to feel that you won't run, that you'll stay, even when the truth is messy, raw, or unspoken. That is where real connection lives, not in what is said, but in what you allow her to say without fear. Reflect, don't analyze. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to a woman is not an answer, but a reflection. Not a theory about what she should feel, but a mirror of what you sense she might be feeling. This is not about being right. It's about being real. It's about showing her that you're not in your head while she's in her heart. When a woman is struggling, you don't need to fix her. You need to reflect what you feel from her with honesty and care. You might say, I can feel that you're holding something in. It seems like you're overwhelmed. Or maybe, you seem distant right now. Not in a cold way, but like you're carrying something heavy and silent. This simple act of reflection does something profound. It tells her that you're paying attention, that you're not trying to dissect her emotions like a problem, but you're standing with her inside the emotion itself. It's the difference between pointing at the storm and walking into it with her. Freud understood that when the unconscious is mirrored with compassion, it begins to soften. It begins to trust. Because deep down, every woman is asking one question when she opens up. Do you see me? Or are you trying to fix me? Accurate reflection validates her inner world. And validation is what unlocks connection. When a woman hears her own unspoken feeling voiced gently by the man in front of her, something clicks. She feels recognized, not just for what she said, but for what she couldn't say. This is not about emotional skill, it's about courage. The courage to sit in uncertainty, to speak from your senses, not your logic, and to offer presence over performance. In the end, reflection builds a bridge. Not because you understand her completely, but because you're willing to meet her where she is, without trying to pull her somewhere else. And that's where real intimacy begins. When you stop trying to understand, you start to feel. Freud didn't leave behind a manual. He left a compass, a quiet guide that doesn't tell you exactly what to say or do, but points you in the right direction, toward presence, toward attention, toward the spaces between words where truth actually lives. Most men keep asking, what do women want, as if there's one universal answer, but the wise man doesn't ask that anymore. He asks something else. Am I fully here right now? Am I listening? Not just with my ears, but with my whole body. Am I creating space? Or am I trying to fill it because understanding, as most men define it, is overrated? You don't need to understand everything about a woman to love her well. You need to feel her. You need to sense her shifts, respect her rhythms, and stop translating everything through logic. Real connection isn't born from figuring her out. It's born from your willingness to stay present when things stop making sense. That's what empathy is about. It's not agreement. It's not decoding. It's the choice to stand next to someone emotionally without needing to label or solve them. It's the strength to let her be complex, and the humility to admit that maybe her complexity isn't a flaw. Maybe it's an invitation. So here's a question worth asking. What if today you stopped trying to understand her and simply listened? Not to what she says, but to what she shows you when she feels safe. What might happen if you replaced answers with attention? Maybe for the first time she'd feel like someone actually sees her. Maybe, without even trying, you'd finally arrive at the place understanding could never take you. Her trust, her depth, her truth. And maybe that's been the point of the map all along.